Hey everyone, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Dallas.
This is Living Vividly. Our goal with this show is to inspire you to do just that, live a more vivid life.
And today we talk to Giovanni Montalvo on the importance of practice, putting knowledge into action, and why it is so important that you ask yourself the question, why not, when it comes to pursuing your passion and your dreams. Hope you enjoy. All right. What is up, Gio? Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're excited to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, anyways, let's get right into it. Do you want to give everyone who's listening or watching a little introduction onto who you are, where you're from, what you're about, what you're doing now, just kind of the background of Giovanni Montalvo?
Yeah. So I'm a 20-year-old filmmaker. More specifically film director, and I'm from Texas, from Houston, Texas, and I'm currently in film school in London.
Nice,
That's kind of like the lowdown.
There you go. And I guess what's life like now? What are you doing? You're going to school, you're making YouTube videos,
So at the moment, I think it's a kind of a crossroads that filmmakers face, or that just creative people face. It's like people always ask, what do you want to do? Or like, what kind of art do you want to paint? Or what kind of films do you want to make? And at the moment, I'm making short films that are narrative, but then I'm also working on documentaries. So right now there's two things happening. I'm working on with a charity called Safe Passage, which brings refugees from the Middle East and Africa to the UK. And the thing that distinguishes them from other charities is that they connect young people that are stuck during the migration process with their family already in the UK. So I've been personally working with this guy named Tekle, who's 20 years old, my age, and his little brother, who's 14, has been stuck in France for about a year, all the way from Ethiopia to France, going by boat, going by train, going by cars, and just kind of capturing that story. And I've also been working on a short film that I'm going to be shooting in March 8th to 11th that I wrote. So I'm working real life stuff and fictional stuff. So like you said earlier, like just living life and kind of translating what I live and what I experience to film.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you find yourself kind of do those tie in together now? Do they influence each other?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, kind of like you write what you know, but then you have to, from a writing perspective, because all narrative film comes from a screenplay, mm-hmm. And like you write what you experience, and traveling around, meeting new people, meeting things happening to you, that totally affects the way that you're going to see the world, and that the way that you see the world is the way that you portray it in film, I think.
I'm really interested. So the story that you're telling, what did you say his name was, who's stuck in France? Tekle. Where is he trying to go?
So Tekle is 20 years old, and he already lives in London. And when he was 17, he came all the way from Ethiopia to France. And then from France, he got into an 18-wheeler inside a refrigerator that they were carrying, refrigerators across the border from France to England. And once he was across in England, they opened the refrigerator, they found him, and he got asylum. But then his little brother, who's 3 years younger than him, followed in the same footsteps, escaping from his home country. And now he's trying to get his little brother to come and be reunited with him in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a crazy story. Yeah.
So you're talking and filming this guy and like asking him questions and learning about this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, literally, we've become friends. Like him and I, like when we talk, he's 20 years old, so we both get along like regular, maybe not teenagers anymore, but you know what I mean, like adults, like young adults. We talk about the same things. I'm like, do you have a girlfriend? How's your family? All that stuff. But then it's like this crazy thing where you realize that at the same time, he's going through something where his little brother's stuck in France for a year.
So is his little brother like, where is he with other family or?
No, he's just by himself, in the
Okay.
care of a charity, just
Okay.
by himself. It's crazy.
Is he trying to find like a refrigerator truck or like what?
No, so
What's
so he could do that, but that's really difficult for a
what's
14-year-old to do.
how does he do it?
They have lawyers. The charity has lawyers that try and expedite the process for them to come together. And actually, on February 1st, we had dinner at a Eritrean restaurant, and we got the news that in the next 20 days, so now within these timeframes, the next 2 weeks from now, the little brother is going to get reunited with Tekle. So it's going to have a happy ending.
Cool, man.
No way. And
Yeah.
you're gonna film
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, we're gonna film the whole thing. We're gonna go to King's Cross St. Pancras, where Harry Potter goes into the wall.
Mm.
He's gonna come in through there from the train from France, and we're gonna film that finally after a whole year.
Wow.
No, and so how did you get involved with this the charity that you're working with to film this?
Yeah, so the school, of all places, they were like, one of the assignments was to make a film or a video for a company or a charity, and as soon as they were like the charities were pitching in front of us, and one of them was about homeless people and giving them a creative outlet, and or like a soup kitchen, stuff like that. And as soon as this charity came up, I was like, that's the one. They have stories that I really want to tell. And we made this video for them. And at first, it was really difficult to gain their trust because they're like, oh, these people are just students, and are they actually going to make something good for us? But then we made it, and like when we showed it to the people, they were just like bawling, they were crying, and they were like, oh my God, and they're like, don't tell anyone, but yours was was the favorite out of all the other ones that we got from your school. And we just said, we want to keep working with y'all and keep making this happen and telling the stories that should be told.
Dude, that's so rad. And
Yeah.
how is that like, how does that affect you when you're doing what you love to do, when you see people crying over, something that you work so hard to create and portray?
Well, I think I've only been doing this for 2.5 years now, right? I started right when I turned 18. I said I'm going to be a filmmaker, and now I'm 20. And it wasn't until I made this film when I went to Norway about my friend who she's in a wheelchair and she has chronic nerve pain that I truly kind of it hit me the power that films or stories can have. And I made this film about her and about how she continues to live life and tries to live a normal life and just be happy. And her father came to visit us in Houston, and we were having dinner with my family. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I watched the film in a very thick Norwegian accent. So he'd be saying it a lot slower than I am right now. And he said, yeah, I was traveling around Finland and doing a lot of work at the time. And then I saw this film and I realized I need to spend more time with my daughter. And he was just crying. And I was like, oh man, this is like, you see a number or you see a view when you see people who've watched your films or your videos, but then you don't realize that behind all of this is someone who might be affected in some kind of emotion. And that's, to me, when I see people watching what I make, and seeing how they feel, that's to me the best thing and the biggest reward. And the reason I do it, because I hope that when people watch what I create, they are affected in some way and can take that message I had in the beginning and, translate it into their own way.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's super impressive that you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Mm.
No. So, man, you got a big 2.5 years, these last 2.5 years since you started and decided you want to do this. I remember when we talked before, you said it was like at the end of high school that you really decided
Yeah.
what you want to do.
Do you want to know more about that?
What's that?
Do you want to know more about how it like?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Start us back. Like, give us the beginning,
Right.
your life, what it looked like. Do you got brothers and sisters? Like,
Yeah.
what's your family like? And how did they, how'd they play a role or maybe not play a role in
Yeah.
what's going on today?
Right. So I'll tell you, like, I guess my whole life is I've built a philosophy of the way I approach things. And I guess it all starts, I was born in Mexico City. And I moved to the US with my family when they were when I was two. And my very first memories are like in Houston, and like I don't remember very much of Mexico at all. But what I do remember, and when I do start remembering, is seeing my family go through the whole process of immigrating to this country. So I remember my family sold all the things in Mexico, and you know, my mom and my dad are both college educated people, so we weren't poor when we moved, but they did sell everything, and we were living in my grandma's house, just like we are now again after the hurricane, but that's for later. And we were sleeping on inflatable mattresses, and it wasn't until a couple months after moving here that my parents were able to rent an apartment, and then after that, go to buy a house in the suburbs, and then from there, only having one car, to my family being able to buy another car, and then whenever I turned 16, me being able to drive. And it's like I've been able to see that through hard work and persistence, seeing it through growing up from my parents. If you apply that to your life, you'll get there even when it's tough. I haven't had a difficult life. You know, I don't see myself like as someone. I've met people who've had very difficult lives, and I'm not I don't want to portray myself as someone, you know, who's struggled through life. But I've been around, and I've seen things that make me appreciate what I've been able to have and to do. Because very simply, Tekle, he told me one thing I'll never forget. When we first met, he said, I went from milking cows on my parents' farm in Ethiopia to I'm studying to be a chemical engineer. And that kind of captivated and made me think about my own journey. Not that drastic, but it made me think, you know, if I was in Mexico still with my family, I'd have a good life, but would I be able to be a film director? Would I be able to, you know, be able to chase my dreams to the fullest extent of what's possible? And I kind of always think back to that when I'm working on things, that, you know, my family didn't move to the US or sacrifice what they've sacrificed for me to just be mediocre. You know, I want to be the next Steven Spielberg or George Lucas or something like that, because why not? You know, if you have the chance, why not?
Dude,
So
that's amazing. That standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Like you do,
yeah.
grateful for that, but you were able to experience that and learn from them. Were they like teaching you lessons like through their words, or were you just like really admiring and watching the way that their actions were going? Was it a combination of both, or?
Well, I think you don't really admire, and I mean, at least I didn't admire or like appreciate until I moved out, because, you know, at least when you're a teenager, you're just like, my dad's always like, clean this, do it right the first time. That's the biggest thing. Do it right the first time. Do this, do this. And it wasn't until I was living alone that I kind of realized, like, oh man, all this lecturing, not in a mean way, but all this like repetitive, take out the trash on the right day, you know, when you clean your room, clean it right for the first time so you don't have to clean it again. All of that, like, philosophy and parenting that my parents instilled in me, which when you're growing up is like makes you angry, or like you get frustrated, right? Definitely helped me in the way that I live life now. And yeah, I mean, does that answer the question?
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
So now you grew up, come from Mexico City, and you watch your parents work really hard and teach you how to do this. Now you're in high school, you know, rubber's about to hit the road. Are they like, you know, you either get a job, go to school,
Yeah.
get a
Yeah.
job? Like,
Yeah.
what are expectations coming out of school for you, or coming out like high school, and like how'd you make that decision to go to London and
Right. So I guess that's the biggest turning point in my life. And you know, I was 18. You know, when you're a senior year, you apply to your colleges right before senior year starts or during first semester. and you get in by the time second semester comes around, and you already kind of know where you're going. So I wasn't I hadn't found filmmaking yet by the time the first semester was starting. What I did was I started vlogging because I would not anymore, but I would work out 6 days a week, and it was lift weights all the time, and I would vlog myself working out. But then through that, by coincidence, I was like, oh man, I really like editing, and this was the first semester of senior year when I was still 17, and so I did that, and I started to like it, and then we second semester comes around, and I've applied to universities. I applied to UT Austin, and I got into this thing called the CAP program, where you just go to one of the other UT schools, and then you go to UT Austin, because they have so many people applying that they just send you to another one for 1 year, and then you go to the other one. And I was planning on doing that, and I was thinking I was going to study like something like international politics or something like that. I always enjoyed that stuff. And second semester comes around, and my German class, they're like, oh, we want to make a film for a competition. And they're like, oh, Gio's the guy with the camera, he can do it. So that was kind of like, it's this crap film. It's 15 minutes long. It's like handheld. I didn't even know that you could change focus on the camera. I thought it was only autofocus. So it's just like the worst thing ever. But I wrote it, I edited it, I directed it, and I loved it. And then I kind of showed it to my friend, and he's like, man, why don't you go to film school? And like, no one had ever told me that. No one had ever told me, why don't you want to be a director? Why don't you want to make films? And to me, that was like, being a film director is like being an astronaut or a cowboy, right? It's a dream. It's not something you ever do it, and you never really think that you can do it. At least up until then, I thought that, especially living in Texas in a suburb where everybody's going to college for business or engineering, and it's very rare to aspire to do something like filmmaking. And I was like, man, yeah. So I told my parents, right? I told them, oh, Mom, Dad, I want to go to film school. And they were like, you sure about that? You don't want to do a job where you don't want to take a degree where you'll get a job? And from that point, it was a lot of conversations and conflict where I had to explain and get my parents on the side of them understanding what I wanted to do. And it's not like they said, no, you won't be a filmmaker. It's more like they had to come to accept it. And I was 18 by the time senior year ended, and I was like, oh crap, like all these kids have been wanting to be filmmakers since they were 12, because you read all these stories. Steven Spielberg has been shooting films since he was 8 or whatever, and I was like, oh, I have to catch up. I have to do something. So I got my camera, and the whole summer long, reading every night, learning every night, going out and filming movies with what I could, and just making. I made like maybe 30 films by the end of 2016, and then I got the chance in the middle of the summer to travel. Sorry, no, wait, sorry, that was after dropping out. Sorry. So I made a ton of films, and they were all really bad, but I learned a lot. Each one of them I learned, and it was just like pure persistent practice. And it wasn't even like talent, because like I really believe like you can have talent, but you have to work hard to keep that going, and to beat people who are talented that aren't working. That quote's like, hard work beats talent hardly working. And I did this, and my parents, for the first time, they kind of realized that maybe there's something in that I can actually do from this, is when my friend, he recommended me to make a video for like, I can't remember, but like a lawn mowing company or something, and they paid me $500. Now that might not be that much in the grand scheme of things, but $500 to an 18-year-old for a video that took me 1 day to make is a lot of money. And when I told my parents, look, I got paid $500 cash, no taxes, they were like, oh. So I went to college, and in college I was there for a semester, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. Like, I had to take math and science and all these things, and like, I want to make films. I know I want to do that, so why should I waste a year or two, like repeating kind of high school kind of stuff. And I was really frustrated. I'd drive back home from college almost every other weekend sooner or later. And I'd keep talking to my parents. I want to drop out. I want to drop out. I want to drop out. And sooner or later, they were like, yeah, okay, you can drop out, but you've got to go to college to go to film school or something. And I didn't want to go. I've always been very ambivalent to New York or LA, not because I don't like it, but because I think it's really difficult to go there to go to a place where everybody's gone and everybody's still going there and try and make a name for yourself. And I think it's important to go out and experience other things that isn't the common thing. So, and I also didn't have the $80,000 for tuition here for NYU or USC. And I told my parents, well, hear me out. Look, it's only $12,000 a year for tuition in London. And and they're like, what? And I was like, yeah. And then they're like, okay. So I applied to the school while I was still in university, and I dropped out before I knew I got in. So I didn't tell my parents that. I told my parents I had gotten in, but I was just kind of like, I've got to drop out so I can get my tuition back before this new semester starts. So then a week after I dropped out of university, they told me I got in. And now this is 2016, and it wasn't easy from there. It wasn't just like, oh, I got in, because I had to wait 8 or 9 months to move. So now I'm back home, and what am I going to do for 8 to 9 months? And that was a really tough period. Not like I said, like I've lived a good life, and I haven't struggled, but that was a tough period because I'm back home in Katy, Texas, a suburb of Houston, and all my friends have moved away because they're in college. Everybody around me isn't my age because they're all in college or they've all moved away. So I was kind of like in limbo. I didn't really have much to do. And the first 2 months were really unproductive. And then I started to work for my friend called Christian Guzman, who owns this company called Outfleet. It's like a fitness company. And that was basically all I could do. I would work out and I would try and make videos for people there. And I made a lot of money for an 18-year-old, and I made enough money to buy a plane ticket. I would look at plane tickets every day. I would lay down when I was at night, and I'd look at plane ticket prices and be like, where can I go? Where should I go? And I went to go visit my friends in Norway, who I knew from high school in the summer. And that was kind of like 5 months of working and figuring stuff out, and then going to Norway for a month. And then that's kind of like when that travel bug.
So did you when you were looking at plane tickets from prices, did you just find the most expensive country to travel to and say, I'm gonna work extra hard to travel to that country?
Yeah.
I would have been like, man, you get a lot of places out of Houston for a lot cheaper than Norway.
I did pay $20 for a sandwich and a juice in Norway. So you're right. I think I chose the most expensive country to go to just to go spend all my money, hard-earned money there. But yeah, no, I mean, like, it was kind of like, that was how I kind of had that conflict within myself to get to where I was. And after Norway, I went to London in September. So
in Norway, you said that's the bug. Like, what happened in Norway?
Well, like, it's kind of like that thing where you go somewhere so different to where you've been your whole life. And I'd had the chance to travel before with my family to Europe and to Mexico and stuff. But this was the first time I traveled alone. And when you travel alone, it's no longer wake up at 8 a.m. We're gonna go see we're gonna go see the Statue of Liberty, and then we're gonna go to the museum. And it's like, but I don't like going to the museum, but we're gonna go to the museum. Now it's like you get to do what you want to do, and talk to who you want to talk to, and think about what you want to think about at your own time, at your own pace. And that's kind of, we went out to a cabin. They have a cabin in the mountains, and they have a cabin on an island. Honestly, it's the most Norwegian thing. So I went to the cabin in the mountains, no electricity, no Wi-Fi, and that's 7 days there, and it's kind of like you're at peace with yourself. And then got to this island where they have a cabin, and it's just kind of like I had a lot of time to think to myself and think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do things. And I just kind of said, you know what, I don't want to do what other people have done. I want to do it my way. And like you said, you know, I'm not just going to film school. I'm going to school in London, and I'm going to making Collective Iris and all these things. And I think one thing I've really struggled with is that I'm very stubborn sometimes, and it's that like I know I want to be a filmmaker, so I'm going to try my best, and I have a very solidified view and philosophy of how I want to do things. And for instance, I get a lot of criticism from my friends or from people where it's like, why are you going to London when you could just go to Los Angeles or New York, or why are you here, or why have you made these choices that normally people don't make, right? Like as an American, it's a privilege to be able to go to LA or to New York and have that chance to work there and to have that opportunity without having to worry about visas and stuff like that, right? But here I am as an American going to London when all the people in London want to come to Hollywood. So it's always been kind of like this outsider kind of
going against the current.
going against the current, exactly. Going against the current that I've in the past year or two I've had to kind of work with or maybe embrace, and still no idea where I'm going to be in a year. I didn't know where I was going to be a year ago or 2 years ago, but I think that's just the nature of the job.
So if you don't know what you mean a year, like I get that for sure. What about the vision though? Like what keeps you, you mentioned being the Steven Spielberg and stuff like that. Is that like the vision? What's the vision that keeps you going when things are hard, right? You've had some tough stuff in your life still.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I think the time that question came most into mind is what keeps me going was in September was I'm 5,000 miles away from home, and over a weekend Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, and like I had to help my mom and my sister evacuate the house because it flooded all like almost 4 or 3 feet inside the house. And I was 5,000 miles away from home, having to help out my family to be able to escape, because like when Hurricane Harvey hit, Friday night, everybody was watching the Floyd Mayweather fight with Conor McGregor, and everything was great, and people were driving. And then Saturday evening, my family had to evacuate by boat. Like the water rose that fast.
Wow.
So I had to tell the people by email and by text message who were at the front rescuing people in my neighborhood to go rescue my mom. So like here I am in London having to do all this, and then it was really, it wasn't tough because I didn't have to face it, but it wasn't until like afterwards that the house was flooded for 2 weeks, water was still there for 2 weeks, that it kind of hit me, and it was kind of like, oh man, like this is it, like where I've lived for 11 years of my life is now gone. Like it's on wooden standstills, and it's kind of like I didn't really register it as much as I would have, I think, if I was here, because I had the luxury of being in London and still being all right and not having lost any of my stuff. It was mostly my mom and my dad and my sister that lost everything, but I mean I did still lose my house. But then that's kind of where especially when you make films and you do something creative, that it's not like when you work a regular job where you can still keep working and you can still keep doing that labor and working at it. It's more like if you don't feel that, if you don't have that motivation, then it's very simple for you to not do anything. Like it's very simple, because if I don't feel like making films, no one's making me make films. No one's ever going to make me make films. It's all self-driven, and people will just be like, all right, I'll just go find someone else, instead of like having someone there pushing you. And what kept me going through that was just thinking, okay, I've got to get through this. I've got to sort those things out, and then I have to think about. Sorry. And then I think what happened from the hurricane that made me realize how far I'd come and how much I'd lost is whenever like I thought about how much you take things for granted. That when things are okay, you things are okay and life can go by pretty quick. But September was honestly like a month that went by in like a year. And after September, I sat down and I said, you know what, I appreciate things a lot more. And it really made me think about what am I doing in my life that I can improve? Where am I wasting time, and where am I headed? And that's been the biggest hurdle I think I've had to face. But then again, I really like to reiterate that point. I haven't had a tough life, you know, but I've had some obstacles thrown at me.
Totally, man. That's amazing.
So sorry, are your parents like rebuilding their house right now, or?
Yeah, so actually we're still at my grandma's house. That's where I am right now. But as the nature of things go, the guy that was doing the repairs was trying to charge my dad too much, or my parents too much. So then he had to find another one, and that delays the process. So it's been like a kind of like a delayed process, and they're actually starting the repairs next week. So it should be done in around May, hopefully.
Okay. So
Yeah.
probably the next time you come home, you'll probably be back in
Yeah.
parents' new house. Okay.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Are they moving back into the same one?
Yeah, same one. It was never supposed to flood. It's not in a flood zone, so it's still safe to live there. It's just that the Weather Channel had to create a new color for the amount of rain that fell in Houston.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that it was like 15% or 10% of the amount of water in the Gulf of Mexico fell in Houston in 3 days. It was like an absurd number. So
What?
yeah, it was absolutely insane. Yeah.
You mentioned something early on that says you kind of have like a theory or something that you live your life by. Do you have like mottos or?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I read. I like to read a lot, and I think just the nature of things is that you take what other people have said and done, and you apply that to how you want to live your life. If you made me think of a quote, I think the biggest quote that's affected me was from a book where I read when I was 18 called Think and Grow Rich, and it's like the original. I don't know if you heard of that book, but it's the original self-help book.
Right.
Yeah, all the other ones came. I think came after Napoleon Hill is his name, and he says in the book, the world doesn't reward you for what you know; it rewards you for what you do. And that quote can be taken both ways. I've had people tell me, "Oh, so then don't learn, or don't read, or don't get educated." It's like no. I've always thought to myself, you know, if I was going to be a doctor, if I was going to be an engineer, then I could be an engineer. But what about the person that the engineer works for, right? Because if I spend all my time just working at one thing but not developing myself as a whole, then will I be able to get ahead in the long run of things? And to me, that's the encapsulation of that quote, that it's important to know and to be a good person, but you have to do, you know, actions speak louder than words. So I think that's one of the mottos. What do you think?
I agree, man. I mean, even just what you're saying, like, it's a difference between someone who's read that book and just read it. They have the knowledge in their head, but that's completely different than someone like yourself that's like applying what they learned from what they read, like, to their real life, right? So that's like, that example in itself just it describes like your implementation of a quote. So you're learning and then you're applying it. So, I mean, that's like in itself, it's like very self-explanatory.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I was going to say, I've read that book a couple of times, and there's so many good pieces in it. And that's not one that I remember off the top of my head, but after you say that, it's like, I absolutely love it, because I feel the same way. Okay. So which book, this is a steal from Tim Ferriss's podcast, but I always like this question because I find good books on it. Is what book, like, if you have gifted it to anybody, or what book would you gift to people like that are like, they're in a position that they think they want to do something, but they're scared. Maybe you're at this position, like, I want to drop out, and you want to take that next leap to doing what you're passionate about, or making something that'll help you make it real. What would you maybe it's not even a book. Maybe it's a resource or a person that you look up to. Where would you
I,
get them?
I think I'd do two things. I think I'd say the first thing I'd say is go watch Casey Neistat, but his old things, and watch his first vlogs where he talks about life and the way he approaches life. And I really love his work ethic and his philosophy. And just apply that to anything, you know. And it's really like persistence, hard work, and make things. And that's Casey Neistat's like, he doesn't talk about that much anymore, but when he's talking in the beginning of his vlogs about his philosophy, that really guided me as a lost filmmaker in the beginning. And then also I'd recommend the book Think and Grow Rich, because I think that I was reading that book when I was about just to turn 18, and I was thinking about being a filmmaker and wanting to become one. And it's just like that in that book, he says you can replace money with anything else. And I literally every time I'd read money in that book, I'd just replace it with filmmaking. And it applies to anything. So it's like, you know, if you want to do this, if you want to become rich, well, what's your definition of richness, right? And to me, that was finding success in filmmaking or improving in filmmaking. And I just approached it from that perspective. And I think that book is really good, but you have to approach it with an open mind, and with not thinking this is the guide, but this isn't the rules that you have to follow, but more like, what can I take from this that I can improve on?
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I just like want to dive into more of this, but I feel like I could do it forever because I love this stuff.
Yeah.
But is there any other practical things like that you like, if you had to share your message with people, like practically how to get started, you know, like beyond philosophy, like you mentioned a few things already, which is just like by making and doing.
Yeah.
That's been a kind of a theme that you've talked about, even when it sucks at first, but it like you just get better.
Right.
Any messages on that front?
Yeah. So I think it does take this with a grain of salt, because it depends what career, what you want to do. You know, if you want to be an engineer, then what I've done is very different to what you have to do. But I think the same theme or motif of this message applies to anything, and it's like perfect practice makes perfect. And I see a lot of filmmakers in film school, in my film school and in other film schools, not make anything or be afraid to make things because they don't think they're good enough. And I'm like, I think to myself, well, how are you ever going to get to a point where you're happy to share what you've made if you don't get your bad stuff, where you're going to make mistakes out of the way? And also perfect practice makes perfect, right? Because you could make this iPhone, right? And this is the iPhone 1, and it's really bad. But then you're like, oh, I'm gonna make iPhone 2, but then you don't improve on it, and you don't see what you've done wrong, and you don't perfect your practice. And that's the problem I see a lot with my fellow filmmakers in film school. It's like they'll make a film, or they'll make something, and then they won't improve on it, and they won't. For instance, maybe they went out and they filmed next to a highway where there was construction, so the sound on their film is just like brrr, and then someone's like talking and saying like I love you, but it's like brrr in the background, right? But they'll go and do that again, and it's like, well, you know, perfect practice makes perfect. So if you want to be an engineer or computer scientist or something like that, just literally practice, but keep improving on what you've built, instead of just following down that same road of things that you've already been doing. Find the new things that you can improve on. Find the things that inspire you. Like I made films and I watched films that I wanted to one day be able to make, and I said, you know, I want to make something like that, and I had absolutely zero idea how to do that. But I literally would be like, here's this film, I want to make something like that. How can I make something like that? And I dissect it and practice on the certain things that I need to improve on to be able to make something like that one day. And I feel like today I can make something and feel like it's like what I had in my head, which is something that when you're first starting out is the most difficult thing to do. To get the thing that's in your head made, when you're first starting out, you make something that was definitely not in your head, or if it was, it's not as good as you thought it would be. And the only way to get there to me is by persistent practice. I'm a very practical person, and I really follow the idea of pragmatism, and I've noticed it's pretty rare, at least in the creative media, or sorry, creative arts, because creative people are really artistic and like, oh, I want to paint this and I want to do this, and like I have all these cool ideas and all these thoughts, and it's amazing, and it's great because people have such amazing thoughts and ideas, but you have to be practical in the way you approach things. So like my friend was like, oh, I want to film someone and I want to make them float. All right, so you go stand there and we're going to make you float. It's like, but dude, we can't do that. We can't make someone float. We don't have the money to make someone float. We can't pull that off. It's not physically possible. He's like, no. Yeah, I want them to float. Just go stand there. And it's like, that's a very common viewpoint of like, not approaching things from a practical and realistic way, which it's fantastic to be a dreamer. I'm a dreamer. I'm sure y'all are dreamers, because what you've created is something that is really amazing and you had a dream about and aspire to. But I'm sure what you guys have done as well is you realize that to get to where you are, you've had to do a lot of small things and tedious things, maybe even, to be able to show the world where you are now.
Absolutely, man. It's just one step at a time. And sometimes you do take a couple steps back, but it's that next step forward. Where can I put my foot next?
Exactly.
And that's all you can worry about, because you can't make someone float right now, but you could a little bit later.
Yeah.
I have to make that happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have another question for you as we kind of come to the end. What are you most excited about right now? Is it a project you're working on? Is it a project you're going to be working on? Is it maybe nothing have to do with filmmaking? What's lighting your fire right now?
Well, I think there's three things. The first one is the Guatemala trip in June. Something you really look forward to. And the second thing is I'm working on 2 short films. I made a short film last year in March, and it did not turn out how I wanted it to, because short films and these films that I make for YouTube are very different very different ball games. Very difficult, very stressful, very tedious, it's a very different craft, making narrative film. And I learned a lot over the past year after I made my film in March, and I've been really improving and reading and trying to see how I can make a better film when I do it. And I'm finally getting ready to make a film in March, where I have a crew, an art director, a cinematographer, everyone coming together to bring to life this script, and that's really exciting. And at the same time, I'm developing another one with my very good friend, who's an actor, where it's about a singer who comes to an interview, and in an interview, he thinks he's a famous singer now, and he thinks back through the questions he's asked to how he's gotten to where he is and if he's happy with where he is. And it's kind of like a statement on fame and perfection, and if happiness is if you divert yourself from happiness on the chasing that and ambition. And my friend, I said my friend, because he's a singer, and I said, you know what, I want you to write a song, and I want us to write a song and make lyrics for this short film and sing, and we're gonna have a music video at the end.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, right. And I said, you know, I want to do something ambitious. And he's like, okay. So we've been literally in the recording studio working out stuff, just these massively long, like 4-hour, 3-hour conversations where we sit down and just talk about the story. And like I've been really falling in love with that process of filmmaking that I hadn't been exposed to. You know, writing and directing actors and directing people, which is a whole different conversation. And the third thing is the documentaries with Tekle and the charities, the charity that I'm working with. Yeah.
So when would like the the listeners and us, like when would we be able to watch those films? Like when do you think they'll be done?
So here's the thing that I really hate about the system is that whenever you make short films, if you want to get them recognized and you want to get somewhere, you have to get them into film festivals. And the good film festivals, they're like, we don't want you to premiere it anywhere else but our film festival if you get in. So you can't technically release it to the public until it's gotten into film festivals and it's done with film festivals. So I wish as soon as it's done, I could share it. But if I'm sacrificing the short term for the long term, then maybe December, January next year. And it sucks. It sucks, honestly. Like, I know it'll be done in April and I could just share it, right?
Yeah.
But I have to sit on it and wait for the right people to watch it. Yeah.
That's understandable. Yeah.
That's all right. We'll link up your YouTube and your Instagram, all that stuff below. And they can just follow along with you until it comes out. And in the meantime, get some pretty funny Instagram stories. I always appreciate your small humor that you add to.
Yeah, I don't like to take myself too seriously, you know?
I love it. It's fun to follow. Any closing remarks on your end, Dale?
No, man. It sounds like you're a highly motivated individual. I'm excited to see you on the big screen someday.
Thank you. You guys will have the tickets to the first premiere.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with that, we didn't mention to everybody that's listening, watching, Gio is coming with us to Guatemala in June to help with a project we're working on down there with an awesome group of people, and then him and his good friend JR are going to be working on making a film. And so we are super stoked to have you, man. We're stoked to travel with you.
Thank you.
And just be able to be a part of your creation process, so that when you're super big, we can post that video and use some of your fame.
Thank you. I'm sure I speak for JR as well. We're really thankful for the opportunity.
Dude, well,
likewise, man.
We're stoked. We love just working with people that are passionate about what they're doing and passionate about people in general. That really is our mission, is people, even though we focus, on specifically clean water and education. But it really is, it's human to human. We're about helping people in need. That could be our mission with Vivid Roots, is to inspire people to live life vividly and help people in need along the way. And those people could be your family. They could be your friends. They could be the guy down the street, be someone in a different country, whatever that means. That's what we're about. So, dude, we're thankful to have you on and to share your story. And yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Well, and if anybody listening, come to the trip with us.
Yeah.
Too many things I haven't done yet. There's too many sunsets I haven't seen. There's too many things I haven't done yet. There's too many sunsets I haven't seen.
All right, we just finished up our pretty awesome episode with Gio. We went through a lot. Dude, he's got a lot going on, and he is a very talented, highly motivated individual. We really hope that you enjoyed this. Please let us know what you liked about it, and we hope to keep making more that you can find value in. So keep watching.
Yep. And make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, or make sure you're liking us on Facebook. You can also, if you just want to listen, on SoundCloud or on Anchor, just so you can follow along.
And let us know who you want us to talk to, and we'll try our best to do that too.
Yep. Hit us up in the comments. See you next week.